Baby, I'm a gangster.
You have no idea how many. You have no idea what's coming. We smell Christian blood. We are waiting for our day. And when the call is given, millions of us will be released. And they looked at me and said, you believe in revivals and you believe in Pentecost and the power of God. You believe in all that. We believe in the Black Awakening.
When you knocked on my door, early this morning, when you knocked on my door, and I said, hello, Satan, I believe it is time to go. Me and the devil walking side by side. Me and the devil.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Supernatural Truth. I am your host, Dee Doss. As always, I'm joined by my brother in arms and best friend, the Red Pill Preacher, Dr. David Roach. And we have a very, very special guest on with us tonight. She is a vampirologist, I guess you could say.
You could say that, yes.
And yes, she's starting her new podcast. Would you help me in welcoming Miss Melissa Dawn Harris?
Thank you for having me on your show, guys. It's excellent.
Thank you for joining us, given today's crazy event in your state, no less. So we sincerely appreciate you being here. So why don't you tell? I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, I was going to say, why don't you tell the folks a little bit of something about yourself and your show?
Well, I've been podcasting probably since 2018, 2019. I used to do a lot on esoteric stuff, occult, which means hidden. I'm not like some crazy occultist. And then I've looked into actual cults and stuff like that. And I went off. I wasn't doing podcasting for a while because I was working. And then I came down to the United States to marry my husband because from Canada. And then he suggested I start it. And I was doing news and stuff like that. But I really always liked vampire films, vampire culture, analyzing stuff, and still with the occult thing. So I decided to switch gears and do the Velvet Bite Radio, which on Thursdays we mostly talk vampire at all different areas. And then on Tuesday, we look at the occult and the conspiracy and what's going on in this world. That's a little dark. It's a little dark, as we can tell, unfortunately. And so, yeah, those 2 days, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern and Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, we stream live.
And her links will be in the description box below. We want everybody to go and give her all the support you can. We want to see her channel grow and thrive. So,
Amen.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So you said you study the occult. I don't want to speak for the Red Pill Preacher, but I do believe that there are, and I heard you talk to Dr. Carroll about this as well. There are many different types of vampires. Could you take us through those and which ones would be probably prevalent to people in just their everyday lives? Because I'm like you. I believe that people have ran into these vampire creatures and not probably haven't even known it.
Well, there's the vampire in folklore, which every country, will have their own folkloric vampire detail. Then you're going to have your literature film vampire, the one that's in the stories and the movies. And then you're going to have a category of people who say they are real vampires. Plus now today, with all the crazy stuff in narcissist and how we're analyzing relations, we have a category of psychic vampires. And that can go in a whole bunch of different directions depending on what we're dealing with or exactly what we're talking about. So you can kind of split it up. I a lot of times talk about, literature, but we do get into the psychic vampire area of it because people seem to be really interested in how to do like psychic protection or spiritual protection in these times.
Psychic protection, like what would that entail?
Well, most of them, it's like with a psychic vampire, they're able to tap into you and drain your energy. So they want to know how to avoid that. I mean, and that's difficult because you have to have really good boundaries, and you have to know how to identify people who are pretty much narcissistic psychopaths who want to take your energy.
Right. And with some of these psychic vampires or energy vampires, are they one and the same?
I think so.
I
I
think
think
so as
that's
well.
pretty much the same thing.
And I think some of them are doing these things unbeknownst to themselves. Just you have this one friend or a family member who just completely drains you of all your energy just from talking to them. It may not be about anything specific. It's just something about that person that drains you of all. It's almost like they're draining your life force. You're real tired
Some people are,
afterwards.
yep, some people are really needy. Really needy.
Right. Absolutely.
And I was seeing Hunting the Shadow saying vampirism and necromancy go hand in hand. And that's part of looking at the occult and all these rituals and cults and stuff too, is you get, the occult mixed in with vampirism.
Sure. And I think they go hand in hand. And then there's like the philosophical and psychological questions about it. Like there's a lot of novels that use vampirism as a metaphor for some deeper meanings like addiction, sexual addiction, and things of that nature. A lot of that stuff is attributed to the classical vampire as well. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the thing about the vampire classically. Like if you go back to like Bram Stoker, there's a whole bunch of anxieties that he has that he's expressing in Dracula. And so the thing about a vampire figure is it changes through each generation, and they use it as their template. They'll switch it up. They could be scared of whatever. So I don't want to get political here, but whatever the social issue is, they'll project that out with the vampire. So it could be sexual anxieties. It could be that the time's changing and you have anxiety about women's rights or industrialization or modern times. It could be that psychic vampires or religious fears or whatever.
Right.
But every generation and every writer and every artist in the generation does their own take on it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Like Bram Stoker's. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was say, because you're talking Bram Stoker, but the writer of Bram Stoker, remember, he was in the Golden Dawn, so he was involved in the
yes.
occult.
Yeah, I was gonna go into that as actually. The very astute. So Bram Stoker, like you said, was in the Golden Dawn, and for those listening at home, you've heard us talk about the Golden Dawn in conjunction with a man named Aleister Crowley.
Yes.
So the Golden Dawn, the OTO, he sat at the helm of these things. He basically went in and took them over because he was sort of a bull in that kind of sense. He was a bully.
Yes.
So
he was definitely a bully who had to have it his way.
Absolutely. And a psychopath to boot. So in that, I know you've seen the new Nosferatu movie.
I have.
And the director of that, I think his name is Robert Eggers. I think he's an occultist, personally. Like, if you've seen his previous movies like The Witch, it's steeped full of occult symbolism. If he's not an occultist, he's a student of the occult, for sure. But that movie was it was a good film, don't get me wrong, like aesthetically, and it was filmed well, acted well, but there's an undercurrent of evil to the whole thing, and it took it back to what I believe vampires are, these wicked demonic entities. What was your thoughts on Robert Eggers' take on Nosferatu?
Yeah, and first, you're right. The folkloric vampire is gross. It's disgusting. It's a corpse.
Yes.
You don't want it anywhere near you. It's not romantic. And I felt really grossed out by his Nosferatu. I was like, wow, it looks like a dead demonic corpse that is making me sick, and I'm repulsed by it.
Right.
It was not my favorite vampire film. I watched it. I sat through it. And I also had a guest. I went on another show and talked to a lady, Dee Doss. She's amazing. She came on my show and she felt the same way. She felt like sick to her stomach watching him.
Yeah, and I think that was if that's what he was going for, he achieved that goal. And it was the plague carrier. It took it back to vampires being plague carriers, and he carried the plague wherever he went and whatnot. The makeup on that, the makeup artists deserve an award for sure. I don't see how they pulled off just like you said, he was a literal walking corpse.
And that's what it was originally. And people, back in folklore, they would have been not known a lot about disease. And if death hit the village and one person died, people would be reporting like, hey, I seen this person, or I had a dream, or they crawled up on me in the middle of the night, and then everybody else in the family was getting sick. And so they were like, okay, people are seeing this person around. Obviously there's something up. And they would go to the graveyard, they would exhume the body, and they would find all this evidence that, of course, to them, we might explain it differently now, that this thing was rising from the grave. So they would deal with it appropriately. And so they probably thought it was something demonic and evil, I'm sure, but that movie really took it over the edge. I mean, it is like grotesquely demonic. It's beyond, I mean, I think it goes beyond anything even in Stoker's Dracula, because Stoker's Dracula is definitely a narcissistic, evil, stuck-up ruler from hell. I mean, he's definitely not good, but he's nothing like this demonic, crunchy, old, gross thing.
Right. And it's still like he still retained the supernatural elements, disappearing and reappearing, and being able to gaze into the eyes of his victims and all that kind of stuff. But every time I think about Dracula, my favorite probably vampire film of all time is Bram Stoker's Dracula with Gary Oldman. I mean, he completely nailed it. Like he played the old count, and then he transformed into the young, handsome sort of seducer. But it goes back to the old Bela Lugosi Dracula for me. And that's the classic depiction that I think everybody's familiar with. But when I was reading about the new Nosferatu, it was talking about, like you say, the historical accuracies of it. And some of which are when they would exhume these bodies, thinking them to be vampires, their hair had grown out and the fingernails had grown and there was blood underneath them. And we know now that that's, a natural process of the body even after death. But there are a lot of accounts where they would have blood in their mouths and hair in their balled up fists. It would look like they had come from the grave. And even in Romania, they say even up to this day, there is still some people who believe that there are vampires that roam through the countryside.
And I believe that because
I do as well.
My father's from Eastern Europe, and I had friends whose father, they all immigrated from Eastern Europe, and she was 4 or 5, and she went back there to Romania. Not Romania, it would be where Macedonia is today. It's like it was Yugoslavia in that day, and my father was from the Croatia area. They were from Macedonia, and they are still practicing the old stuff. The wall hadn't fallen yet. They were still like out, like they had no modern technology in a lot of places. And she told me it was really weird because she was born in Canada and she was scared because it was so like folklore. It was like going back 150 years. That's less now because they've modernized, but I'm sure you can still find that and traditions still happening today.
Absolutely. And I'm of the mindset that it's still happening because I truly do believe here. I like to say folklore is just history that's not readily accepted by the majority of people. I really don't.
The official narrative.
Right. Exactly. I really don't believe that our ancestors, near and far, were these ignorant barbarians that practiced these customs because they were afraid of the dark. I don't believe that at all. And having grown up in the southern United States, which is steeped in its own folklore, maybe not the vampires, but they had what they call haints, the booger man or the boogeyman, which we believe to be a Sasquatch type creature. You'll hear things like this, werewolves and such, and they're passed down verbally, just like in the Eastern European bloc and things, the old world, very old world over there. Just like here in the Appalachian Mountains, very, very old world. You'll still hear these verbal folkloric stories and traditions. And when you talk to the older people, they tell it with a straight face. They don't tell it as it's a scary story. They tell it as fact.
Yeah. And, orality is the key. It's, pre-written language. That's how people told the stories. It was
Right.
orality. You see that in native tribes, any kind of Celtic tribe before Rome showed up in Britain. It's all oral, and that's it's what connects you to all the, your ancestors, is that you get around and you tell these stories as warnings. It's your type of history. So you may not document something down like the vampire struck at 2:01 on February the 2nd. You might use a more metaphorical way, but you're still telling history and accurate information and warning the people in your tribe or your village about something that's wrong.
Absolutely. I believe that wholeheartedly. And growing up in Oklahoma, talk about the native tribes. There's a lot of native tribes in the oral traditions. And I was, I guess, fortunate enough to grow up close to a couple of them. So I was invited to some of the actual councilmen of the Chickasaw Nation and the Choctaw Nation's homes. And I got to hear a lot of these oral traditions and stories. And sure enough, when I grew up, I got to experience some of what they told us. And that opened my eyes at an early age to the things that people try to cover up, like you say, as being, not a part of the mainstream narrative, things that would practically scare you to death
Yeah.
and cause disorder if everybody knew that it to be fact.
Yeah, and I think there's some people, I think the more you're connected with commercialism and mainstream stuff, you're not as intuitive. And I think a lot of people who are connected to the land are just more intuitive, and they can see stuff that other people can't see. We've got a whole
Absolutely.
spectrum of reality that we're not exposed to because it's in a different light. And I think some people can just perceive it better than others.
I believe that as well. I don't know if Mr. Hunting with the Shadows, who's joined us in the chat right now, the good doctor, told you anything about me, but I started off about 13 years ago on YouTube doing a podcast. I was a field investigator for cryptids, like Bigfoot and Dogman. Came back with all sorts of evidence of it. And, they were just stories that were told before then, So once you experience one of these supernatural creatures or beings, like there is no end of the road for it. You know what I mean? I believe it all. I believe it's all real.
Yeah, well, I mean, I lived in a haunted house when I was really young on the east coast of Canada. So I've experienced stuff that, and I'll try to trick myself and say, no, the paranormal is not real. I would try to trick myself, but then I have to remember certain instances. I'm like, no, it's real. Stop trying to,
Right.
gaslight yourself. And then I lived on Vancouver Island for over 30 years, and that is like Bigfoot, Sasquatch Central.
Right.
So I heard so many stories and experiences of people, and I was like, oh, there's obviously something going on here.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I see a lot of people in the chat are referencing Louisiana. Now, there's a mentor of mine who's a New Orleans native. He has a really big channel. And I got it from the horse's mouth that vampires are real in New Orleans. And I had an occasion to go down there. My niece's husband's a Marine. And they didn't have anybody to help them move from Chicago to New Orleans. So we did, the Smokey and the Bandit ride. I followed him in his moving truck. And he made me go down. I had no desire to go to the French Quarter, none of that stuff, but he kind of twisted my arm, and I went down there, and it's the most evil place I've ever felt. But it was about a week away from Halloween, and there were two people. They weren't dressed like vampires, mind you. They were just in all black. The lady was abnormally tall, and the dude was short and kind of chunky. But they kind of walked past me and brushed up against me. And I remember turning to my niece's husband and saying, hey, those are vampires. Straight up. I could feel it. I could feel it in my spirit that they were something else. They were something different. And just the way that they moved, it was almost like otherworldly. Is the only way I can describe it. They moved like we were in their hallway, like they lived on those streets. I can't describe it. But yeah, after seeing that and hearing the stories that I've heard, I believe it wholeheartedly. Have you, with all your studies, heard of any vampires in New Orleans, or have you experienced any of that yourself?
I have not experienced an actual vampire that I recall, although I've experienced plenty of weird people who I might have thought, like, was that? But I know that, look, there's a lot of hoodoo and voodoo and magical
Right.
stuff, and there's different interpretations of vampires. Like, there is like this sort of witch doctor vampire that you hear about a lot in Haiti, where they will kidnap, drug somebody, bury them, and kind of revive them and make them work on their like fields and stuff like that. They make them think they're almost like a zombie vampire. There's like that
Yes.
kind of corpse. And I think a lot of that stuff and that kind of mindset and that magical belief system, whether you believe in it or not, I don't know. I'm not judging anybody. But I think when you bring that all with the French and all that mixture of that unique culture in especially New Orleans or Nolans, you can tell I don't have that accent. But
Knowledge.
I think it's such a unique dynamic. And then you've got Anne Rice writing about the vampires in that location and San Francisco.
Right.
I think you put it's like a cauldron. It's like a magical mix, and there's no doubt that you're either going to experience some kind of, maybe it's a tulpa, maybe it's a real person who's a vampire, or maybe it's people who dress up. But I have no doubt that that area is going to manifest that like crazy.
Absolutely. Dr. Dennis Carroll has put in the chat, darkness always attracts darkness. And just the feeling when you get down into the city itself is unlike, and I've been a lot of places, it's unlike anything I've ever felt before. It's like if you could quantify evil into the air, that's what it feels like. So it would make a lot of sense that they would be there. I don't know if it's the land itself or it's the element that they bring being there. So we've talked about these vampires. I think are all in agreement that they are real. Do you believe that there are groups of men and women who, and I've heard the story before, and I believe we know one of them. Do you believe that there's groups of men and women that are tasked to quell their population or to hunt them down?
Like vampire hunters?
Right.
I mean, yeah. Well, if there's vampires, I guess there's going to be a Van Helsing type of archetype out there. Its counterparts. I've never talked to any of them specifically, unless Dr. Carroll, you consider him a vampire hunter. But I've never talked to anyone who says I've staked a vampire. I've seen it in folklore regions, but most people don't go there because they'll probably get in trouble with the law if they're digging graves up or doing stuff like that, right? In our country, people will be like, what's going on? But
Yeah.
I have no doubt that in other countries, like especially in tribal areas, that this is how it goes. There's
For sure.
no doubt. You've got to stake that. The whole purpose of staking the vampire is to keep it in there so it doesn't move anymore.
Right. Which is, if you think about it, it's pretty hardcore. This thing is reanimated corpse of the dead or recently dead, or someone who becomes, I guess, the living dead and being transformed into a vampire. That's so vicious that the only time that you can do anything with them is when they're at their most vulnerable, and you have to literally stake them to the ground and bury them again and hope that they don't get out. That's a pretty powerful creature.
Yeah, it's also logical too. It's like it's not
Right.
like they're just like, okay, what do? We got to make sure it doesn't get out of the ground. ABC 1, 2, 3. Stake that sucker, right? Pin it down,
Right.
and take its heart out. They would wrap things so it would somehow knots confused it, so they would make it do knots, or they would make it so it would have to count. That would stop it. It's interesting. Apparently, the Count from Sesame Street was based on real folklore. They like to count.
Right. Which is kind of a mad thing that they would actually put, out of all the creatures, they would put a vampire as the Count, But
yeah, maybe they were trying to induct us into the occult and paranormal while we're really young.
Absolutely. We did a show not too long ago about some of the occult symbolism and cartoons back then. Like the Smurfs were steep full of the occult.
Oh, yeah.
Gargamel, the wizard, and then there was another friendly wizard of theirs, and they, the Smurfs themselves were some sort of a created being by these wizards.
Yeah, and what was the other one? If you go look at the movie Neverending Story, massive occult symbols, Labyrinth,
Yes.
massive occult symbols. A lot of those movies that were in the early 80s, if you were a kid then, you were being introduced to the occult. And a lot of people and a lot of rock stars were not only into the occult, they were Thelemites. They were right into Aleister Crowley. Debbie
Absolutely.
Harry, she was a Crowleyite, 100%. She got her band members into it. So it's weaves all through it because they're artists and they just get into that stuff.
And when you start reading about Aleister Crowley and the practices that he did, he threw his best friend off a mountain, sacrificed his firstborn child in a ritual. But then you see like President Obama and Jay-Z and other artists with the hoodies on that says "Do what thou wilt," and you have the Beatles who featured him prominently on their Sgt. Pepper's, I believe, CD cover.
Yep.
You know,
He's there.
once you start looking at that kind of stuff, it's almost like these people are telling on themselves.
Yeah, I think they like to make it look like it's just entertainment and it's not to be taken seriously, so we're kind of disarmed about it. But if you go and look, take someone like Aleister Crowley, for instance, you know, like people get obsessed with him, and he predicted this kind of future of, he called it Crowleyanity that we're in right now. But he had this and I tell people, well, this is how a lot of politics, this is how a lot of people start taking control. And I want to go into this more on my Tuesday show. I just started last night, but Aleister Crowley knew how to take control of people, like physically. And what he would do is he would start to mimic the person and sync up. And if you do this, if you mimic a person while you're eating and copy their motions, after a while you can sync up with them. You're kind of infiltrating their energy, and then you can take over and change their motions and what they do. And this is how he would do it. And I'm like, I think that's how our system does it. They infiltrate, they sync, they copy us, they tune in with our energies. Vampires might do this too, and we think they're one of us or whatever it is, and then they start to change the dynamics slowly so that we start moving like them. And that's kind of possession in the terms of Hollywood and all of these dynamics and politicians and whatever. They're literally riffing off of what Crowley was talking about. And not only that, they were using Crowley rituals. CIA 100%. Reportedly with MK often was totally using Crowley and practicing his rituals.
Yeah, for sure.
So this is how they're doing it. And I think that's how vampires do it too.
Makes all the sense in the world to me. And two of Crowley's proteges were L. Ron Hubbard, who a lot of people who know as the great fiction writer who started Scientology. And who's the other one, brother? Father of rocketry, rocket science.
Oh, Jack Parsons.
Jack Parsons. They did what they call a working, which is a series of rituals in I want to say Utah, but that doesn't feel right. New Mexico. Where's Area 51? New Mexico?
New Mexico, isn't it? New Mexico.
Yeah, it's New Mexico. It was in the New Mexican desert. They called it the Babylon working ritual. And they were really big into sex magic. Very, very wicked people. Jack Parsons was known in the Hollywood Hills for his giant orgies that he would have. And he was, the whole time he was inviting all these actors and actresses as a scientist, as a man of science, to his home to engage in these. And I think a lot of it was unbeknownst to themselves, engage in these sex rituals. Well, they did one, and to bring on the Thelemic god and the moon child in the desert. Yes, and it was one of Crowley's rituals that they did after his death. Well,
even Crowley kind of thought like they did it after his death, but they were always talking about it, and he thought it was a little nutty, and he's kind of crazy himself.
Yeah. It's the one that he did inside of his home, and it was successful, but he had to close the portal for whatever reason. I've heard conflicting stories, like something came through that scared him, which if it's scaring Aleister Crowley, you probably shouldn't be messing with anything he's doing to begin with. But if it's something that scares this man who had his honeymoon in the bottom of a pyramid and tried to conjure a spirit into himself for one of these Egyptian gods and was upset that it went into his wife instead of himself. So if this guy's afraid of whatever's being opened up in these portals, you should probably leave it alone. Well, these two idiots decide to go out there, and a few months later, Area 51 is built around the site where they did this ritual. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
I know
imagine
Crowley. I know Crowley did the Abramelin ritual at Boleskine and didn't shut it down. But he also would channel different gods and deities and stuff like that. And one that he channeled, his wife would help him. He called it Lamb.
Lamb.
And if you look at his drawings of it, it kind of looks like an alien.
It's like a gray alien.
Right.
Yeah, it looks like an alien.
It called itself an angel.
Yeah, you got Jack Parsons being Rocket Man with NASA. I'm like, okay, what's going on? Did they copy him and start calling aliens forth? And who knows? I know this was about vampires originally, but this is an interesting avenue.
Oh, we
to
go
look at,
we
'cause
go
it's
wherever you'd
weird.
like to go on this one.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
Crowley is just a
Yeah,
weird guy,
you're-
and
It is very interesting because of the influence that he has on all the people. My brother and I are deliverance ministers. We help
Right.
people who have been plagued by wicked spirits. So for us, it's very interesting because we see his influence being in the deliverance ministry everywhere. Even if people don't understand what it is they're doing, they're paying homage to this man, involving themselves in some of these occult rituals and things that they do. And it's wild that one man can have so much influence so far after a man that died in obscurity in some nut hut somewhere in England.
yeah. And well, remember Crowley's probably one of the earlier people who's testing psychedelics and drugs in terms of spirituality.
Right.
You got to wonder if that influenced the Nazis, and then they came over here, and it starts influencing all these kind of big pharma things, and you got to wonder how connected they are, because he was an addict of many different things. And when he was in Cefalù,
Right.
Italy, he was pushing it as like a health spa to help you get over heroin addiction. So that's why people were coming there. Well, part of the reason. And how he was doing, he was giving them cocaine. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
so now they're not a heroin addict, they're a cocaine addict, and they're in with this weird occult, isolated from their family in the middle of Italy, pre-World War whatever. I was like, wow, that's so
Right.
crazy. Why do people want to do this stuff? It's like they feel like they're getting something special from these people, that they can provide them a key to eternity or some immortal, I don't know what, but it gets a little crazy. He is quite crazy. He's a narcissist. He's sociopathic, and I have a friend who's a Thelemite who's coming on my show about vampires, and I accept that he is. He's a nice person, but whenever I tell him Aleister Crowley's a psychopath, he disagrees with me. So I'm always like, yeah, no, he is. He was. And I've actually talked to other Thelemites I interviewed them for my article about Crowley, and they told me they had a problem with him. They actually said, yeah, they had a problem with him.
Well, he cut his teeth on studying Alice Bailey and Helena Blavatsky. All these people influenced him greatly, and they're heavy hitters for the red team.
Absolutely. What's crazy is, just like you said, Alice Bailey, Helena Blavatsky, they laid a lot of the groundwork for what would become some of his, what would you even call it, his rhetoric.
Sure.
But I've read articles where these people that are involved in Thelema, they denounce him fully.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy. And what a lot of, sorry, Wiccans, I love y'all. I know you love nature and stuff, but he helped craft your stuff with what's his name there, Gerald Gardner. So the thing is that there's 6 degrees of separation. They were all elites. They were from elite families, wealthy families. They all went to these schools, kids from these schools, well, adults from these universities. They wanted to get into the Golden Dawn. They were all connected, and they all had different objectives. So, they're gonna work together, but maybe they didn't know he was a psycho, but he's a psycho nevertheless.
I'm pretty sure they knew these bloodline families take Vlad Tepes, for example, your prototype for Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Mm-hmm. His bloodline goes back to the antediluvian world. Ordo Draconis, Order of the Dragon, son of the dragon, is what his bloodline goes back to the little g god Hercules, which King Charles of England, he actually claims that bloodline. And you see it in their heraldry. You see it on their heraldry. All the elites. I don't know if you know this, Melissa, but elite, the word elite, El means God.
Yes. Yes, it does. Absolutely. So that's their way to say they are God, almost.
Yeah, they're the little G.
Almost. And they've always said they're the represent. Like they used to. At least they used to. I don't know if they say that anymore, but they were always representations of God in Earth. And
Right. Yeah. But what's crazy is, and I'm pretty sure if you get them behind closed doors and get them comfortable, they'll tell you. Like in Hebrew, it's Michael, Gabriel, and Michael. All the angels, save for one,
EL.
have the EL after their name. And I think what my brother's talking about is, and I believe it, they have records that we don't have access to, and I believe that they can trace their lineage back to one of these fallen angels in the pre-flood world, or at least they believe they can.
Right.
And that gives them some sort of a, that gives them some sort of a mindset that they have a duty to rule over man.
Right, and they feel like they have an authoritative position. It's like an appeal, not an appeal to authority. It's a claim of authority.
Yeah, they call it Rex Dei, or the
Rex
black
Dei.
nobility. Yeah, the black nobility. All these families, all the royal families, have the same structure. They all
So I
can trace
wonder-
their lineage back.
They must,
Say it
maybe
again?
they're vampires, because
Oh,
Vlad
they're
the
absolutely
Impaler
vampires.
sure operated in a very grotesque way. that
Well,
you could
by
associate with.
definition, they are already vampires. You should see some of the, having dealt with satanic ritual abuse for most of my ministry, I will tell you the darker side of things is really the reality. These people these vampires are walking in the daylight, drinking infants' blood, for real.
And it's
Not-
the ultimate, youth is the ultimate sacrifice.
Sure. And not only do they get the scientific benefit from the adrenochrome, the adrenalized blood, but they get the ritual side of things, that pleasing their celestial mafia godfathers, these little g gods, whether it be the Greek pantheon, Egyptian pantheon, Roman pantheon.
Do you think those gods are real, or do you think they're made up and they're just
No,
delusional
no,
and think
they're-
they're real?
No,
They're
I
absolutely
believe they're
real.
absolutely real.
They're
These
real.
are what we
And
would call in the book of Enoch the fallen ones, or the watchers, that came to Mount Hermon and took daughters of men and procreated and made your
Right.
first generation Nephilim. And
Right.
then after the flood, it's Raphaim and Gibborim and so forth, so on. It's a whole nother show, but yes, we believe that they
Yeah.
are very, very real.
Yeah,
Right.
and the Book of Enoch is an extra biblical work now, but even in what the 66 books of Holy Scripture that we have, the Book of Daniel speaks about the Watchers, and the Book of Deuteronomy says how God sits at the head of the table of these gods, and because they did not judge righteously by the poor, the widow, or the orphan, where God placed them in the heavens above these nations, that they were destined to die like men. So even in Christian Scripture, it talks about these little g gods. You won't hear a lot of Christian folks talk about it, unfortunately, because they don't read their Bible. But I believe that they were and are living entities that vibrated a
Right.
different frequency. You talked earlier. I can tell that you're astute. These different light spectrums. I believe that they're entities that vibrate at a frequency that the human eye cannot pick up on, in
That's
a
right.
different
Right.
dimension, so to speak.
It's true, and I have, that's what the paranormal is all about. Is people, it just sort
Sure.
of I think it's all overlapped with us, whether it's some kind of vampire entity or a ghost or whatever, and it just thins a little bit at certain times of year, or people can see them better because they're just more attuned. And when I see TV
Right.
shows doing ghost hunts and the paranormal, I get really frustrated because I'm like, that's not how
Yes.
things happen. Things happen fleetingly and then they're gone for most people. You don't need to sit in a dark room, although maybe that will help some people, but their gimmicks and all their stuff get on my nerves. I find like they interfere. And I've been out there with hunters, I've been out there with people and their machines, and they're all turning them on, and cat's tails and boxes, and it just irritates me. I'm like, can we be quiet and meditate and like just actually feel what's really here, because your stuff is interfering with me. And like all this technology, I'm like, how do you think they saw it 100 years ago? They didn't need these technologies, they just felt it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And the technologies put you at a bit of a disadvantage. On my old channel, I think the reason it grew as big as it did is they call me the holistic investigator. I would go out there with sometimes the camera, sometimes not, but I would just literally, like you said, I would tune into the area and go towards the feeling
that most people would go away from. And sure enough, that's where these creatures would be.
Right,
And it's
that's
that simple.
Old school mediumship. That's old school how they would do it.
Yep. And I believe that there are people that there's people like you say that are more sensitive to these type of things, and that's in my mind at least. That's why there's such a push towards individuality, and especially with social media, you can push out all the things that you don't agree with, and you have your own little makeshift world that you've built online yourself. If you don't agree with someone, you can just block them and ignore them. People who have an inclination towards feeling and seeing these supernatural beings and creatures don't really have that. They're more inclined to, like you said, want to go somewhere, sit and be quiet, and just absorb the environment that they're in, instead of trying to superimpose anything upon it.
Well, right, because how do you get stuff to come to your mind and float in your mind if you're busy tapping your EMF meter and setting up your box and your lighting and all this stuff that we don't even know if those things prove that it's a ghost. Like, I don't know where everyone got this from. It's obviously, I think, so I had a friend who worked, he was working for HBO doing documentary, and he approached them about a documentary on the paranormal. And they literally told him, look, bro, if you don't manifest a ghost, we won't fund you. So he's like, well, I can't guarantee you a ghost manifest. I want to do a documentary about the history of this. And they said, we want manifested ghosts. So that tells you a lot about this industry that's on TV. Is you have to make action happen, and it's about entertainment. So it's like it's so that's why they have the tools, because it's like, hey, we're doing something, it's scientific, and it's just like, okay, well,
Right.
And we know for a fact that some of these big names in the paranormal or the ghost hunting world, which we believe they're demons, this ghost hunting world are major occultists. And if something is manifesting, they're summoning it or they're conjuring it to appear.
right, whether they know it or not. Some of them are, exactly. Or
Yeah, exactly.
you can manifest something like a tulpa. You can make it happen. There could be nothing there. I went and investigated a house where everyone said Ted Bundy was. Well, he never was there. I had the information, but weird things are happening at this abandoned location because everybody keeps going there and putting this energy there to create something. So Ted Bundy was never there.
Exactly.
But apparently he's there now. You know?
Wow.
It's weird. It's weird how it happens. And
it
I
is-
think you
it's-
could do that with
it's very
vampires too. There can be real ones, but I think
I believe you
we
can do that
create
with
a vampire.
whatever you put your.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, we could create.
there-
we could do an experiment right now and try to make a vampire over a month, and something might show up. I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah, damn that. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's I don't know if you've heard this case. It was two girls in Illinois. We bring it up a lot to illustrate the point you're talking about. They said that Slender Man animated them both to kill their friend.
Yes.
And they were individually, they were coordinated by Slender Man. Slender Man threatened to kill their family. When they looked on their computer, both of them were doing nothing but playing the Slender Man and talking to one another. But how can this fictional character coordinate two girls separately to go and kill their friend at the same time? I believe that there's a wicked entity out there that saw that they were focusing all this energy onto this wicked fictional character, and like you said, they inadvertently created a topa.
Exactly. It's easy to do. Look, I had an experience when I was doing a show. We used to do a paranormal show called Drawing Out the Spirits. We didn't summon spirits. That wasn't our objective. What we did was we would have a guest on, and my co-host was an artist, and he would draw what he thought they were talking about and give it to him as a gift. And so this one time, there was this we wanted to redo the Philip experiment. We thought, let's try it out because we're silly. And so there was a story about a cat. It was like it was like a cat that haunted a manor. I think it was a fake story. I don't think it was real, but it haunted a manor in England. My co-host was from England. And so he drew a picture of it when we were talking about it in a show. And he said, hey, let's do the Philip experiment and see if we can create this cat that we had a name for. I can't even remember. So I was busy working, and I was single mom, and I was doing all stuff, and I just didn't have time to do any of this meditation stuff, but he was doing it at home. And he started to see shadows and stuff of a cat show up. And then one day I was sleeping, and I had a sleep paralysis thing come in this weird shape and crawl up on top of me and push down, and I was able to get it off, and I gave him a call and said, I think you need to stop the film experiment right now, because that was the creepiest thing I've ever seen. So I've never done anything like that since. That's why I said that's why I recommend to people, you probably don't want to do that. You want to make sure what you're doing, because something else could come in and be like, oh, look at those people are trying to manifest this cat, and I'm going to show up and old hag it on top of someone and get them. And that's exactly what happened. And I wasn't even doing the ritual, but I was connected to it because we were doing the show talking about it. And so he was seeing shadows, and I had a basically what you would call a sleep paralysis, but it was like I was awake. I couldn't move, and it came down my hallway and in my bedroom and crawled on top of me, and I was able to get it off and start moving. And it was not pleasant experience. I don't recommend people to do it. That's why I called him right away and said, hey, you need to stop and take all your rituals, whatever you're doing, you need to throw it away and stop doing that, because it's shown up at my house and I don't like it.
Wow. Yeah, I've experienced that before. I recognize it as like a demonic attack. And like you said, when you open yourself up to that kind of stuff, you're asking for it, basically. You know,
you never know what's going to show up.
Yeah,
right.
It's going to be nothing.
A cat did not show up and go meow at my house. That's all I'm saying. Just warning everybody. And I wasn't even doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how they the spirit board. They use the spirit board and open up these gateways for these entities to come in, and you don't know what's coming or who's coming, even if the entity itself.
And that's the thing about it, bro.
You can't tell the truth. You can't know if they're telling you the truth or not.
And that's the thing about it. That's what gets me about like the whole so-called ghost hunting thing. Like, we're automatically going to believe this entity vibrating at a frequency that we cannot reach ourselves just because they say it. You know what I mean? We're not going to test that up against anything. Like, my grandma and grandpa and my aunts and uncles that have passed on before me, I don't remember them opening and closing cupboards and throwing teacups around in life. Nope. So why am I going to assume that that's them in death? Like, it's mind blowing. So on another note, this just came to me. I want to ask you this at the beginning of the show. Ed Lorraine Warren had the doll that inspired it was one of those Annabelle dolls. Right, it was a Raggedy Ann doll, right? Did you see what happened to this idiot? He took it out. I mean, Ed Lorraine Warren, like, he knows more than them. They said, never take it out. Leave it here. It's sealed in there. The spirit that's in it sealed in. Never open it. Never move it to anywhere else. He takes it on tour like it's the Harlem Globetrotters. Like, it gets down to New Orleans. The day that it's in New Orleans, what is it, like 12 people escape from a Paris prison? And then, like, 2 weeks after that, the man's dead as fried chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think why they did that, a little bit of arrogancy probably, but I think what happened is they wanted to make money having people visit that museum, and it was zoned like they couldn't do that in Connecticut. It was like you couldn't have it as a business area, and so I guess they thought, well, we'll just take it on the road and make money. And it's sad. I mean, I feel really horrible that man died. Is. And, I'm not making light of that, but it's, when you have that kind of curse, plus you have a whole huge audience that believes in it and helps fuel it. I would, just on the cautious side, I just wouldn't want to deal with that.
Well, when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes.
I feel bad for his family, but he played a stupid game. Like, Ed Warren was an ordained priest and minister, I believe. I think he was ordained into the Protestant and the Catholic Church. I may be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure. And he said, leave it alone. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm going to go on a construction site, I'm not going to listen to the dude who just showed up with the water bottles. I'm going to listen to the job foreman and the guy who's been there for a long time, has been doing that job. You know what I mean? So if this guy says, hey, don't step on this part of the building, you'll fall through the roof. I'm not going to go up there and test his word. I'm going to listen to him because he's been around for a while. And that's what blew my mind when I saw this guy. And the sad thing is, I remember watching the video. I had to watch it, like, it's a short 2-minute video, but I had to watch it in like 3 different sections because it was giving me anxiety. He got some poor guy. He was like, okay, open it up. It's fine. It's fine. He got some poor dude to open it and like actually put it in a box. It wasn't even him that did it. So could you imagine what that guy's feeling right now?
Yeah, he's probably thinking, paranoid, like wondering if he's next.
Exactly. You know, I'd be a paranoid schizophrenic if I was him.
On my show, was it a week or two ago, I showed a video of Ed Warren. It was a clip from their channel, and he was showing this satanic effigy. He was showing his son-in-law the satanic effigy they had gotten from Sandy Hook. And when he said the name Sandy Hook, I was like, oh my God. And I was asking, I said to my husband, did you hear where he got that effigy from? And he's like, yeah, is that the same? I'm like, yeah, they live in Connecticut. And I'm like, my husband's like, well, there's a lot of satanic groups there, like powerful satanic groups there, I've heard. And I'm like, that's what he just said. So I'm like, all this weird stuff that happens in our country, I don't think it's by accident. I think it's all, yeah, I don't want to say, I don't want to get too creep anyone out, but that fact that there's these effigies, and apparently the farmer who found it and reported it to Ed Warren said that there was a cloaked figure around it when he found it, and they took off running. So he thinks they were trying to do some kind of curse. So it's probably cursed. And I'm thinking, what's going on in Sandy Hook here? You know, and this is in the 90s before you know what happened. I'm like, what's going on? It's crazy. I know what's going on. You all good?
Yeah, we're good. I think Dee's having a problem or something. But yeah, we're really good. We're good actually.
Okay, cool. I wasn't sure. Oh, maybe he's having an internet issue.
Yeah, he's having an internet issue. Yes,
yeah,
Edward and Warren are actually our good friend Dennis Carroll actually knew them quite well. Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yes. Yeah. They're an interesting character. I just went and seen their movie there on the last rights. It was interesting.
So during that cold conversation, the internet just kind of gave out for literally no reason whatsoever.
With
all the stuff that we talk about
going on.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
All the time.
Sister, like given the stuff that we talk about and being deliverance ministers and literally being on the battlefield in the spirit, like every time, and we were just talking about this today, every time some spiritual point is being made, it'll kick me right off.
Interesting.
Like you seen the camera was on for like 2 seconds. Yeah. That's a great question to ask. Have you experienced any kind of technical strangeness during any of your shows?
I have. I can't remember when, but you know what? I had this guy on a long time ago, and he was coming on talking about a poltergeist thing that happened, and I think he was making it happen. I wasn't sure. And while I was interviewing him, it was pre-recorded at that time. I wasn't streaming live, and there was something I didn't like about him. I felt like not good about him while I was doing this interview, and all of a sudden, while I was interviewing him, I felt like someone was standing right behind me, breathing on my neck. And my hair on the back of my neck. It's the only time something like that has ever happened. And I said to him, and when we were done the interview, I said, while I was interviewing you, it felt like you see me look back. I had to look back because I swear to God, someone was standing right behind me. And I'm like, literally I've got the heebie-jeebies here. And he's like, oh yeah, this thing follows me around all the time and does that all the time and attaches itself to people that I go on podcasts with. And I'm like, oh, that would have been nice to know beforehand. Yeah, he said, oh, that's probably from me. It's probably because I had to live in that haunted house. I don't know what it is. I'm like, yeah, well, that was a little bit much.
No kidding. Thanks for letting me know beforehand.
Fortunately, it wasn't live. And I was basically, afterwards, I looked around and said, you are not allowed in my house, whatever you are, just because I interviewed your bloke, you go back to him.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I think that, well, to suffice it to say, I'm not worried about spirits going through the airwaves, really, because they know what time it is. They usually get out of my way, you know what I mean? But that's pretty heavy duty. I would not advise anybody who wants to be on Miss Melissa's show that has any attachments to not inform her beforehand.
I don't even know if he really was aware. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was me. Maybe I did, maybe, I don't know. But I've never, ever before or since had that experience that while interviewing someone suddenly came up and standing right behind me and breathing on my neck. I was just looking around.
That dude was a witch. What I
I
feel.
don't know, man. I think he had something attached to him from that house, and I think he liked it. I think it made him feel special.
Some
Exactly.
do.
I think that he conjured something, and he knew that this spirit was attached to him, and that's his way. I've dealt with people like that before, who'll have these spiritual attachments, make up some cockamamie story, and they're literally peeping toms. These spirits will attach themselves to them, and then they would send that spirit, or that spirit would go out on its own into someone else's house, and then this person has a dream, and they know the entire layout of the person's house and all that. That I've been told before, and have experience, but the person couldn't do it. He said it was like there was a big red glowing shield around me. He was going through the chat. He was a gentleman who was watching the show, and he was asking the other guests, like, hey, why are you sitting in your underwear watching Dee's show, eating out of a blue bowl? And I was seeing people drop off the show. And I told him, hey, dude, you need to email me after this. When I talked to him, and he said he was astral projecting as he was listening to me. And he was giving details that made these people uncomfortable, you can see. And he said, yeah, but I can't see you. I can't come to your house. I'm like, yeah, if you do, there's somebody waiting here for you.
That's right.
So the spiritual protection that's provided by our faith in the Lord Jesus Christ is invaluable. You can't put a price tag on it, because there are people out there that have crazy amounts of power having these spiritual connections with these entities. And you have to fight
at what
fire with
cost?
fire.
Right.
Oh,
There's a cost.
Yeah, absolutely there is.
We have brothers and sisters in the faith that were one time in the occult, high level people, like John Ramirez, for example. And
Zachary King.
Zachary King, a friend of ours. He was the high wizard of the Church of Satan for years, for the whole world,
He was the priest of Bohemian. He was the high priest of Bohemian Grove.
Wow.
Yeah, hung out with Bill Clinton. Yeah.
That's really scary. I love it. Does he do shows? Does he come on shows?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he did an 8-hour show with me. I've only released 2 hours of it.
Wow.
Great guy. He's one of our Catholic brothers. Works very closely with exorcists, and you can check him out. It's mysticforchrist.com, and he's a phenomenal human being. He's helped a lot of he's shut down a lot of abortion clinics, helped a lot of satanic ritual abuse victims. But yeah, he was the high wizard of the United States, high priest of Bohemian Grove, head of the Satanic Order in the United States. So
What's his name again?
He's a pretty heavy hitter. Zachary King, King.
All right. Thank you. I'll write that down because my brain forgets things now. I'm getting too old. Sorry.
No worries. And he talks to anyone. So, like, if you'd like to have him on the show, I'll put in a word for you. But
sure, that'd be great.
Again, this dude was literally having Congress with multiple different levels of demons. He had demons that were attached to him that were forced to do his bidding at all times. He goes into all that craziness. But I'll say all that to say this. Like, for instance, the guy that you interviewed, to me, when you were describing it, to me, that sounds like he was looking for an in. You know what I mean?
Possibly.
It's a crazy thing. But I'll tell you what, folks, we're at our hour now. But would you be willing to come back and do a part 2 at some point?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we enjoyed talking to you. You're awesome.
Oh yeah. Awesome.
Folks, go check out the Velvet Bite. You'll find the link down in the description box below. And I'd like to thank again Miss Melissa Dawn Harris for coming and joining us. And good luck on your channel. You do a great show. You're a great guest. And God bless.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You guys have a great night. Go check out her channel.
That's
Whoops. Yeah, 1 second. I'm sorry. Yeah. All right. Bye-bye, guys.